the people are still here after finding out that an unborn fetus was able to block shrapnel with his key and was able to do it subconsciously. Let's continue. Again, you guys aren't missing anything when I skip these chapters. All that happens is that there's an emergency birth. Videl goes into labor. Although, there's nothing saying that they couldn't C-section it. I mean, it happens. That could be an emergency thing. It didn't. I mean, things like that just do happen. And Videl almost flatlined, but they were able to bring her back thanks to a few mumble jumbo, and Goku just woke up and was able to fly back after he did some long meditation. And of course, Goku finds out about the accident, pointing out that his meditative trance prevented him from actually sensing anything. Which, I kind of have a problem. You see, sometimes to help focus my mind, I go into meditative trances, but if I hear something going on around me, or feel like something's wrong, or my stress level kicks in, there ain't no way I'm going to unfocus. And even if we were to believe that Goku's meditative trance were to keep him away from sensing anybody, he should have still felt something. Anything, being that close. This all just feels like an excuse. But the day carries on. Goten and Trunks proceed to have a conversation about what's going on. Goku has more conversation. Bulma ends up apologizing for not being there when she had to. And all I could think of is, why didn't Videl just fly to Goku's house? Or, at Mr. Satan's home if it had to be neutral territory? This feels like it was forced. Really, really forced. So this brings us to chapter 26. Dr. Furukawa enters Videl's room. Good afternoon. I have some good news for you. We're releasing you today. You officially have a clean bill of health. Already? Videl questioned. I thought he said I was going to be here for a few more days. Well, Dr. Furukawa started as he began to look at his notepad once more. All your tests continue at normal. The baby's tests remain the same. Your wounds are completely healed, and we cannot detect any presence of dangerous bacteria in your body. Therefore, you're good to go. That's a relief, she said before looking down at the baby in her arms. You hear that? We're going home today. A few nurses came in and began to turn off and undo the last of the equipment that was attached to her. Dr. Furukawa signed the last page of his report, making Videl's release official. It'll only take me a few minutes to process these forms. In the meantime, you can get dressed and use the phone to contact your husband and father to pick you up. Thank you. After Dr. Furukawa left, Videl let out a sigh of relief. She lay back on her bed to take a few deep breaths before going up to change. Finally going home. She thought to herself, even though it had only been a few days, the entire ordeal felt like months. All she wanted to do now was be in her own home with her family. However, she continued getting dressed. She came to a sudden realization. Now she was being released. The inevitable conversation between her and Gohan was just on the horizon, but she still had no idea what to say. Turning towards the phone by her bed, she was starting to feel trepidation about her dismissal from the hospital. I can't not call them, she thought to herself. Eventually, she walked over, picked up the receiver, and dialed the number into the hotel suite that her husband and dad were staying in. As the phone rung, she prayed it would be her dad who answered. Hello? An old familiar voice came from the other end. Hey, Dad, she exclaimed, perhaps a little too enthusiastically. Oh, Videl, we're just about to come by. Mr. Seaton screamed back to his daughter. He managed to catch the attention of his son-in-law, who was sitting in a chair a few feet from him. Listen, Dad, I just got news from the doctor. They're releasing me early. He went to process the form, so I should be out here in the next hour. That's great, Videl, Mr. Satan said, jumping up and down. What's great? Gohan asked, obviously curious as to what was going on, to making the other man so exuberant. Videl's being released today, Mr. Satan responded. Already? Mr. Satan switched back to talking to his daughter. We'll set you on beat right over there, right away. Gohan held his hand. Let me talk to her. His voice was rife with excitement. Hey, Videl, Gohan wants to talk to you. Fearing any type of confrontation at the moment, she quickly made an excuse to end the chat. Lastly, Dad, I need to get dressed. The doctor will be back soon, so I need to go.
Oh, okay. See you soon then. Bye.
Bye. Vidal hung the phone a bit. A dull, faint beep, beep, beep on the other end of the sound. Mr. Satin turned to Gohan.
I'm sorry. She said that she had to hurry up and get dressed. But hey, we'll see her in just a bit. I'll get Pan and Boo and we'll go over and pick her up.
He hurried to gather the others. Gohan sat back down in his chair. As he gathered the last of her things, a million possible scenarios were going through Fidel's head. She was not only wondering what to say to her husband, also thinking how he would react. The last thing she wanted for him was to feel betrayed. Betrayal! That felt better. Like she went behind his back. She didn't want him to blame his father for this.
$5 says he will.
After all, the meeting was her idea. Still, what was the best way to approach this? Struggling with decision on how to tell him and when, she made her incredibly stressed. It was the sound of her newborn letting out faint cries and giggles that made her stop her present worrying. Picking the infant up and holding him in her arms, she smiled. Why am I so paranoid? The important thing is we're alive and healthy, right? The baby responded by grabbing her finger and making cooing sounds. Okay, even I can't be mad. She kissed him on the forehead. Everything will be alright. Everything will be alright. In a short time, Videl was joined by her family, and they helped cleaning her room of various get-well-soon balloons and baskets that people sent in. Within half an hour, everything had been gathered up, and the family made their way to the hospital lobby. They were all elated to finally be going home. In the lobby, Dr. Furukawa met with Videl one last time, as she signed the remaining forms needed for her release.
Alright, Mr. Satan. This folder here will have all your information for your records in addition to your son's birth certificate, and the additional paperwork that goes along with it. Before you leave, I just need to remind you that we ask you don't participate in any strenuous activity, including the big one, for at least 3 weeks. You can call us if you unlikely to experience any pain or illness.
Thank you, Videl responded. She's her family. Everybody ready? Yeah! Pan jumped in the air. She was very excited. Her mom was coming home with her new baby brother, and they would finally spend their first night together in their house as a family of 4, plus one world champion grandfather. She had a unique family. I think this guy is real already as well. Go on ahead. Listening to the baby in his arms, it sung a few cries of response. For them, that was the confirmation they needed. By the time the family arrived home, it was evening, and they decided to officially celebrate the baby's birth and Fidel's homecoming with a large dinner. Celebrations and some crazy wholesome meal lasted way into the night as they moved into the living room for a late dessert. Soon thereafter, Pan fell asleep on the couch next to her father, with Mr. Satin and him not far behind her. Guess it's time we put him to bed. The children are the other two, Fidel giggled, making note of her father's drowsy expression. Both, Gohan replied with a smile. Fidel laughed again, letting out a yawn from her own fatigue. Yes, I guess you're right. She turned to her father. What do you think, Dad? She knew she was going to catch him off guard.
What?
Mr. Satin stuttered, half asleep. Bedtime?
Well, it does seem like a bit early, but if you say so.
His face was still slightly stirred, to continue to fight off sleep. The poor man was trying to show off his vitality and rich energy, but was failing miserably. Causing another slight chuckle from the husband and wife pair, Mr. Satin proceeded to cyclically pull himself from the couch and balanced himself just long enough to walk to one of the guest rooms after saying goodnight. Gohan picked up his sleeping daughter and smiled at his wife. Shall we? Fidel, who had the sleeping newborn in arms, slowly stood up and made her way up to the stairs, husband behind her. The first stop was Pan's room, where he laid her down on the bed, covering her with a blanket. They each kissed her on the forehead, softly whistling her sweet dreams. Next was the baby's room, which had already been prepared months ago in anticipation for this day. The moon was providing enough light for Gohan to see everything, and placed his son in his crib without turning on any disturbing lamps. Laying his son in his crib for the first time caused him to be flooded with emotions he had not experienced since Palin was born. It felt as if he and Videl accomplished something great, and he had a tremendous sense of pride that came with fatherhood. And at the same time, this was only the start. Now the baby's life was just beginning. It would be their job to take care of him, as well as Pan, and any other children they might have had down the road. He lay down to give his son a kiss on the forehead. Sleep well, little one. Sweet dreams, Fidel added, kissing him good night. She then stood up and leaned against her husband, while still watching after her sleeping baby. It was a moment she wished could be frozen in time, because, like Gohan, She was feeling the same sense of happiness that only a new parent could feel. After a moment of silent bliss, she managed to pull herself away from the scene and head to the master bedroom with Gohan following. Once in the room, she set the one-way baby monitor on the nightstand and prepared for bed. It was now just the two of them, alone for the first time since the accident. As he shut the door behind him, Gohan began to think about all the unanswered questions he still had. Perhaps it wasn't an ideal time, but these questions had been haunting him for several days now. It was now or never. Videl, we need to talk. I need to know why you lied to me, why you were in East City. Videl froze. The moments he had spent the last few days thinking about, stressing over, was finally here. She turned her head till she was face to face with her husband. There was a long, tense moment. The thought had crossed her mind to ask him what he was talking about, but she quickly dismissed it, because she knew it only served to lay the truth and create more distance between them. No, she had to be honest with him. Suppose I owe you an explanation. She sighed as she sat down to bed, staring at the family photo on the wall as the void on contact. She continued, I went to meet with him. With who? Your father. She was not sorry. Not for her actions, because she knew your father was probably one of the last things he wanted to hear. She was right. The words struck him with such wow there was not a tense of unbroken silence between them, during which Videl stood her ground. A surge of confidence suddenly filled her, no longer afraid of this talk. She had done what she thought was the right thing to do and stood by it. Despite the circumstances that occurred afterwards, resolve was needed. In order for that to happen, the two were going to have to be more open with each other than they ever had been. After the hard swallowing of those two words, Gohan finally responded with one simple word. Why? Because I know what he did to cause you so pain. She continued to be soft-spoken, knowing your intrinsic sensitive details of the past. He was taken aback. What? Videl started at the beginning. What she first expected he was hiding something. She told him about her suspicions, along with her fear of bringing them up with him. With reference to the night of his birthday party and the following morning, she mentioned that the last thing she wanted to do was cause him more pain. That said, she explained that her suspicions grew exponentially within that time frame. He even confessed overhearing the conversation between him and her father the night he moved to their new place. After that, I knew you were hiding something from us. Something from your past. I could feel the anguish turning inside you, but I knew you would never admit it to me if I confronted you about it. Always been the type to carry the burden, never share it with those around you. Let anyone help lighten the load you have on your shoulders because you don't want other people, especially your loved ones, to go through any of the pain you're going through. I felt that in order to connect with you on this, I had to seek alternative routes. She then explained her meeting with Bulma and Krillin, discussing his past. She was apologetic for going behind his back, related to the fact that she had been shutting down from everyone and had no other options. That's when they told me. That's when they told me what happened after the Cell Games. First, I never heard from you or anyone else. Seriously, nobody talked about this? I find it hard to believe that no one talked about it. Not talking about family members? Fine. But big events like this? No. Videl knows exactly what he talked about that afternoon. How Goku said his goodbyes after his sacrifice of Cell, refusing to be wished back. And how Krillin brought up the notion that he believed Gohan might have blamed himself, although he could never confirm his suspicions. She continued with how she felt that the next logical step was to talk with Goku about all this. Again, she became apologetic for lying about where she was going, but it had to be kept a secret in order to preserve the actual function for their meeting. Then described what was said during their talk at the cafe, and even explained the plan that she had set up to try and get them to work things out. All purpose of the meeting had been destroyed by that car accident. She felt it served no purpose to hold anything back. And I felt like the whole accident sequence served no purpose. Honestly, it was the only tool she had left to work with. Gohan waited patiently until she was finished. Despite his initial shock, he had managed to remain completely calm while his wife explained things to him. Perhaps because he was simply happy she was safe. Perhaps because he knew that her actions were altruistic. She never meant harm. Or maybe it's the way that you love me. Or perhaps it was because he could not judge, since he had secrets of his own. Lifelong secrets he was passing on to. Why do you want me to make amends with my father? Why are you so against making amends with your father? Gohan let out a frustrated sigh and turned away from her. They immediately stood up and raised her voice. Listen, I cannot even begin to understand what you've been through. That's right, you can't. I'm sorry, Gohan, but you needed that. You needed that. Every time I hear somebody say that, I feel like bitch slapping them. Hard. Ignoring the comment, Fidel continued. I know you have a lot of pain associated with this time of your life, but grow up! Gohan, despite your vices, I would like for Goku to be a part of this family. He may not be perfect, but he deserves at least that. You should talk to him. Let him understand how you feel. I know you think he won't listen, but he will. Your father loves you. Don't let a few mistakes ruin your relationship.
It was only a few,
Gohan muttered under his breath. It was meant to be a thought, but it escaped his lips. What? He turned back towards her, almost expressionless. He felt the truth of his past boiling up beside him. For so long he tried to protect her from the truth, but now it was all coming to the surface. Wow! If only you knew for how long I suffered from his actions. But not just after the Cell Games, but well before, and well after. Okay. Goku better have done something really serious. This fanfic better add something really, really serious. And it better be really good. Otherwise, I'm going to go off. I am going to really go off. The two sat down on the bed, proceeded to tell her everything, starting from his childhood. He left nothing back as he openly discussed the intense pain and suffering he had gone through as a result of his own father's doing. And Piccolo, the choices Goku made, and Piccolo, the feelings of abandonment, and how it affected his upbringing. It wasn't just one or two mistakes, it was a pattern. He suffered the brunt of his consequences. As he continued to talk, it felt like the floodgates of his past had opened, poured his heart out to her. Memories he had never shared with anyone, and now being discussed. The more he divulged, the more emotional it became. At times his whole body would shake. Oh God, here comes the crying again! This was the first time Fidel was getting a detailed expression of her husband's childhood, from his own perspective. But she knew his upbringing was rather unorthodox. She never imagined the struggles he faced at such a young age. Some of it was because of others, like his Uncle Raditz, but a decent portion was because of Goku. As Gohan came up to present day and his experiences and his events, she realized there had been so much she'd never known about him. Wiping tears from his eyes, Fidel found herself in a state of shock. His behavior the past year was now completely disrespectful. Now she knew what it really felt. A veil had been lifted. Gohan was a whiny bitch.